You've heard your own voice every single day of your life, decades of it. Every word you've ever spoken, you were there, listening, building a deep expectation of exactly how you sound. So explain this. You tap play on a voice note, and a stranger answers. Higher, thinner, a little nasal. You actually wince. And somewhere in your chest, a tiny voice goes, "That is not me." That recording is the truth. The deep, warm radio host voice you hear inside your head exists only within the enclosure of your own skull. The version playing back through your phone speaker is the voice the entire world has been hearing your whole life. Your friends, your family, your teachers, all of them have only ever known the stranger. Dr. Yale Cohen, a hearing scientist at the University of Pennsylvania, notes that the voice on a tape recorder is actually how you sound. The cringe is simply the shock of meeting your external self for the first time. Resolving that mismatch requires looking at the raw laws of physics, a process that starts with how sound moves through solid matter. When someone else talks, the sound takes one simple route to your ears. It travels through the open air, hits your eardrum, rattles 3 tiny bones, and lands in your brain as audio. Clean, simple, one path. When you speak, your brain processes a remix. Your voice loops back through the air like everyone else's, but it simultaneously travels a second pathway, vibrating directly through the dense bones of your skull. Your vocal cords act as a subwoofer bolted to your jaw and cheekbones. That bone-conducted route does not carry sound faithfully. It heavily favors the low end. Researchers found this internal signal dominates in a specific band, roughly between 1 and 2 kilohertz. It artificially pumps up the bass, padding your voice with a warmth that the air-only version lacks. The closer the sound source is to your skull, the harder those little bones vibrate, and nothing is closer to your inner ear than your own mouth. Your skull runs an aggressive audio filter every time you speak. You have literally never heard yourself without that bass boost, until you hit record. A microphone lacks a skull to vibrate. It can only capture the air. It hands you the raw, unbassed reality. Your brain, having marinated in the deluxe bass-boosted edition for years, naturally recoils. You aren't judging the pitch of the recording. You are experiencing the sudden loss of a lifelong built-in filter. If this discrepancy is really just a missing bass frequency, we have a psychological problem. You don't blush when someone turns down the bass on a stereo, so why do you blush when you hear yourself talk? Back in 1966, 2 psychologists named Philip Holzman and Clyde Rousey recorded people speaking and played it back to them. The subjects stumbled over their words and made sharp, unflattering judgments about themselves. Playback caused severe, observable emotional disturbance in the room. Holzman and Rousey concluded that the discomfort comes from extra-linguistic cues. When you hear yourself recorded, you hear everything underneath the words. The hesitation, the anxiety, the trace of eagerness leaking out that you were constantly broadcasting without realizing it. Picture agonizing over your tone during a brief audio playback on a group video call. You panic, wondering if you sounded desperate or unsure, while everyone else on the call acts completely normal. Nobody else heard anything strange. Psychologists term this specific pain voice confrontation. You are eavesdropping on your own unmasked, unguarded self, forced to sit on the receiving end of your hidden emotional states. This is where the biological mechanics tied directly to your ego. Researchers point to the self-concept layer. Your voice acts as a load-bearing wall, aligning the specific audio you hear inside your head with your total social identity and personality. By adulthood, that internal sound is fused with your sense of self. When a recording violates that internal standard, your brain processes the sound as an active threat to your self-portrait. This chart illustrates the scale of that biological disconnect. In one study, when people were played a brief clip of their own voice, only about 38% could even identify it as theirs within the first 5 seconds. A third of people failed to recognize the instrument they use every single day. The cringe is actually identity friction. It is the gap opening up between the you think you are and the you the world actually receives. There is a final, entirely unfair piece to this puzzle. When you listen to a friend on a recording, you listen generously. But when you listen to yourself, you stop hearing and start auditing. You dissect every pause and every slight crack in your delivery. Your inner critic is mathematically biased. Studies show individuals rate the quality of their own recorded audio significantly worse than trained, objective experts rate the exact same clip. But because of a psychological rule called the mere exposure effect, this cringe has an expiration date. The human brain inherently prefers things it is exposed to frequently. Familiarity signals safety. You love the internal voice due to infinite exposure and reject the external voice purely due to a lack of it. The recorded audio isn't broken, it is simply new. Audio professionals, like podcasters and actors, cure their cringe through forced, repeated exposure. They gradually close the gap between the stranger and the self until the external voice finally feels like home. The stranger on that tape is the version of you your friends and family have known and loved for years. You are just the last person to be introduced to them.